I'd never been kissed, never been held, never even been tempted, until the day I stepped off that rattling little train into a world that felt nothing like the cramped apartment I'd shared with my sister in the city. The air out here smelled like leaves and rain, not exhaust fumes. The only sound was the hum of a vending machine and the wind kicking at my scarf. Then this sleek black SUV rolled up. The driver, all polished and efficient, asked if I was Miss Carter. I nodded and he took my battered suitcase like it weighed nothing. The ride wound through rolling hills, past barns and old stone fences until we turned down a driveway lined with gold and copper trees. At the end of it, there it was. The house. All sharp angles and glass walls like it had been sliced straight out of a magazine. No creaky front porch or lace curtains. This place was built for someone who didn't just live, they controlled everything. Inside, a warm-eyed woman named Helen, the house manager, greeted me like we'd known each other for years. She showed me to a bright, airy room overlooking an infinity pool right next to where Lila's room was. Lila, I learned, was 6, smart, full of energy. And the reason I was here, her dad, Daniel Carter, was the rest of the equation, my new boss. I'd read about him, tech visionary, billionaire, widower, a man who kept his life locked up tighter than any system his company ever designed. When I finally met him, he was in the kitchen pouring water like he had all the time in the world, even though you could feel the weight of his schedule in the air. Tall, sharp-featured eyes like he could see straight through a person. Miss Carter, he said evenly. Lila comes first. Everything else is secondary. Can you work with that? Yes, I told him. A flicker of a smile so faint I almost missed it before he said, Good. Lila burst in moments later, all curls and backpack straps, asking if I liked pancakes. By the time she was tugging me upstairs to see her Legos, I'd forgotten I was supposed to be keeping this job strictly professional. The first days, blurred school runs, snack times, Lila's art projects covering every surface. Daniel was different. With her, he was warmth and patience. With everyone else, he was measured, precise. But little moments crept in, a second mug of coffee sliding my way at dawn without him asking if I wanted one. His voice soft when he thanked me for something small. Then came the first crack in his armor. One night, a storm rolled in, rattling the glass walls. Lila wanted to build a lightning fort, so we camped out in the living room until she fell asleep. When I went to get tea there, he was barefoot in a t-shirt, leaning against the counter like the storm was nothing. She likes you, he said quietly. That's not common. I told him I liked her too, and for a second his eyes stayed on mine longer than they needed to, before the wall slid back into place. A week later, the three of us went to the village market. Lila pulled us from stall to stall, her joy contagious. At one point, a heavy box toppled off a cart right in my path. Before I could even gasp, his hand gripped my waist, pulling me tight against him until the danger passed. My heart was still pounding when he let go. He didn't say anything, just glanced down like he was checking I was in one piece. But the message was there. The real turning point came during another storm this time, with the power out. Candlelight made the whole house feel smaller, closer. He asked me about my life. I told him the truth. I'd never been in a relationship. Not because I didn't want to, but because nothing ever felt right. And now he asked. I met his eyes. Not until now. The silence was alive, heavy with something neither of us had named. His hand brushed mine. And then his lips were on mine, tentative, careful, like he was afraid to break me. But I leaned in and the world outside that couch just disappeared. After that, he kept his distance again, professional, controlled. Then Lila got sick. Fever, chills, the works. I stayed up with them all night, fetching water, cooling her forehead, watching Daniel's shoulders tense like he could will her better. Sometime before dawn, he looked at me and said, You're good for her. You're good for me. I didn't think. I just reached for him. This kiss wasn't cautious. It was certain deep, the kind that takes over every thought in your head. We slipped out into the hall so we wouldn't wake her, and that's where he said it. I don't want to just kiss you in the dark and pretend it didn't happen. I want more, and I think you do too. He was right. We didn't rush. For Lila's sake, we took it step by step. 2 weeks later, he told her we were dating. Her face lit up like Christmas. "Does that mean she stays forever?" she asked. He smiled and said, "That's the hope." Life shifted. Quiet evenings with his arm around me. Saturday mornings at the market, watching the walls he'd built around himself crack little by little. He started laughing more, really laughing, the kind that makes his eyes crease at the corners. A year later, autumn rolled in again. The leaves were gold, the air crisp, and the house was filled with the scent of birthday cake. Lila was in the living room yelling for us to come see what she'd built. Daniel slipped up behind me in the kitchen, wrapping his arms around my waist. "You know," he murmured, "this time last year you were unpacking in the guest room, and I was pretending not to notice you." I laughed. "Pretending I noticed," he said, kissing my neck. "Every second, and I plan on making sure you never feel untouched again." I leaned into him, thinking how strange it was, the girl who'd never been kissed, never been loved, now standing in the middle of a life she hadn't even dared to imagine. But here's the thing. If you'd been me, would you have stepped over that line with your boss? Would you have trusted someone who kept so much of himself hidden? Or would you have kept your heart locked up the way he tried to? Because sometimes the risk is the only way you ever find the life you were meant to have. So, what would you have done?